This is Coop's Comedy Corner. Buckle up because it's funny as Coop's Comedy Corner.
Welcome to Coop's Comedy Corner. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and we're back for another week. And I got to tell you, go to coopscomedycorner.com. There's a bunch of Steve Cooper swag from my show Cooper Talk, from my business podcast, The Coop Tank. From this show, there's shirts, there's doggy shirts, there's sweatshirts, there's mugs, there's coffee cups. It's a lot of good stuff. And don't forget to listen to my show on all those platforms out there. If you want to listen, go on to Spotify. And we have a great guest today. You know, I was thinking about it. I think the last time I saw my guest, she was from my hometown, and we had done a few Andy Scarpati gigs back in the day. But she had a play at the, I believe it was the El Portal Theater in North Hollywood. And I went to that, and I still remember because on the way back to my car, I saw Rip Taylor, and I got a picture with Rip Taylor, and it was so bitchy because he had a guy, like, he had to sit there go like, no. He was bossing this guy around, have to take a picture. I'm like, it's just a picture. But anyway, now Debbie Kasper is my guest. She has a new show that actually July 31st and August 10th, backed by popular demand at the Santa Monica Playhouse. And it's called Monkeys on My Back and Everywhere Else. And my guest is Debbie Kasper. How you doing, Deb?
Hi, Steve. How are you?
I want to talk about this play because I know Monica Piper put up. I think Kathy Lavin came to see it because you're in with all those great comics, and you're a great comic as well. So tell me about the play. What's it about? Where's the title from? And are you loving doing it?
Okay. Well, you know what monkeys on my back means, right? A monkey on my back? Yeah, basically an addiction. So I'm an addictive personality. I'm an alcoholic in recovery. And even though I haven't had a drink in 30 years, my life is like a game of whack-a-mole, you know. During COVID, I got completely addicted to sugar. I gained 10 pounds 5 times in a row really fast. I was just sitting on my couch eating sugar. Isolation is really bad for alcoholics. There really isn't anything out there that I don't do too much of, except maybe liver. You know, anything I like, I got no stop button. So while I was sitting around during COVID, I wanted to write another project. I had been out of showbiz for 10 years. This is my big comeback. And I'm like, what do I want to write about? What do I want to write about? And I'm sitting there eating.
Hold on a second, Debbie. Hold on one second. I didn't know you left showbiz.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you left. Well, we'll get to that. But okay, so you're sitting down and you want to get back in. What made you want to get back in?
Well, I always wanted to get back in. I never wanted to leave. I was forced out through a series of tragic events that we'll talk about in a moment. That'll be the funny part. And I was sitting in like I said, I was just sitting around in COVID all by myself because of all the tragic events that had just happened. And I just noticed in captivity all my addictive behaviors, you know, eating, binge watching Game of Thrones. Oh my God, here comes the White Walkers, you know. I was just like, everything I did, because I was alone and we were shut in, I was doing addictively. And I'm like, this is what I need to talk about, because even though you're in recovery, you know, your game's like your life is like a game of whack-a-mole. You get the alcohol under control and up pops cigarettes, and then you get the cigarettes down and up pops sugar and shopping and just Facebook, you know, everything that a normal person can do a little bit of and say, okay, that's enough of you. But an addictive personality is like, I can't get off Facebook. I can't stop. I just got to do one more hour, you know. So that's what made me, it's been the bane of my existence. And also the best thing that ever happened to me was recovery. So I just wanted to write about something that was raw and honest, and that means something to a lot of people.
So when you're starting to put the show together, because as I said, your background is stand-up. Now, I did a storytelling show a few weeks ago, and it's very different when you do a one-person show or a story like that, because we're so addicted to the laughs. We want to get the laughs. So when you're doing this and you're
Yes.
vulnerable, then you sit there and go, holy shit. Because I was doing the show and I'm like, I'm telling this funny story and I get a laugh. I'm like, all right. And then I tell something more serious. It doesn't get a laugh. And our trigger, I think comics, our mind triggers us to be like, oh my God, we're dying up here. So
I'm
what was it
dying.
like for you to write this? Because it was serious. It's a mix of what you do.
Well, it is serious, but it's also, I mean, I'm a comedy. I'm a comedian. I'm funny. It's told in a very funny way. It gets very dark because there was a lot of tragedy that I went through. So it gets very dark. But the second I take them too dark, I come back with a surprising, funny observation of that moment. And it just brings people back. They're like, oh, phew, I don't want to be depressed anymore. Yay. So it's a roller coaster. And yes, it's very hard being a comic where we get our complete self-worth through the laughs we get, to be on stage and be doing something that isn't set up punchline. And I keep saying to my directors, I'm not getting any laughs at the beginning of the show. And she goes, people are getting to know you. And I'm like, no, I used to be able to go get a laugh first line out. And she goes, she's constantly saying, it's not stand up. This is not, it's very hard to let go of that. Very hard.
Now, when you were writing it, what was your process? Did you sit down, because you said you have an addictive personality? Did you binge write it, or would you write a little and walk away? Or a lot of times we'll write something and we'll go, oh, this sucks, even though it doesn't suck. Then we come back and we go, well, no, this is a bit. So what was your writing process for it? How long did it take?
All of the above. I'm a very compulsive person. I'm a very compulsive writer. In fact, and my show is about doing my show. It's about my compulsive obsession of my own show. That's about me and how I can't stop doing it and I can't finish it long enough to actually do my show. But of course, I am doing the show. It's a play within a play. But I'm very compulsive. Sometimes I will sit and write for hours and hours and hours, and I'll look back at it and go, well, that all sucks. And I'll just, delete, or I'll put the file away. But I believe that anything you write is part of everything you write. It's like turning on a tap of a keg of beer. The first stuff that comes out is crap. And then you got to wait till the good beer gets out. So I've been writing it on and off for a while. I wrote the first draft during COVID, and then I put it away for a couple of years. And then I just took it out and started rewriting. I'm a very big rewriter. I rewrite the rewrites. I overwrite the rewrites. That last sentence I rewrote, sometimes I rewrite things literally 20 times. But I think that that's how things get good.
Now, do you think sometimes, though, you over rewrite and you might take some gem?
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes, sometimes you just get a gem and you go, holy shit, this shouldn't work this easy. Do you feel like you have done that at all during this play? Just that you actually some parts you may have actually rewritten too much?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. It's because sometimes I'm looking for something better, but I don't make it better. I just make it different and it's new. I'm like, oh, I like that. And then the next time, like, I don't like that anymore. Oh, I like this. Oh, I don't like that anymore. I like this. But at some point you put it up in front. I have every version I've ever written. When I say I delete, I don't delete anything. I've probably got 100 files of versions of this particular show and anything I've ever written. 100 files if I want to go back. And every now and then I'm like, what did I have here that was so good? And now I can't find, I have to go back through that line, that worked. Let me put it back in. It's a puzzle. It's a giant puzzle. And because you write. And yes, I have absolutely written past the miracle many times. And that's where, there's a saying, and I don't know who said it, but it was about Michelangelo. And I used to quote it all the time, and I'll probably screw it up because I haven't said it in a long time, about Michelangelo says it takes two people to do a sculpture, to sculpt a sculpture, one to sculpt it and the other to say, you're done, because you can just keep working past the beauty, assuming that you have any beauty going on.
Yeah, exactly. So now, so you get it
Assuming you
done.
are Michelangelo.
Yeah, exactly. I'm making Play-Doh dogs and they suck. So let's say, okay, so you get it done. You get it done. Now you have to put it past the finish line. You have to get it on stage. So did someone kick you in the ass to help you out, get it up and get it running? Or was that you knew the whole time you were going to put this together? Because we all write stuff. And, sometimes you're like, maybe it's not going to put some, what you're doing. You're really, look, you're being you're being vulnerable. And sometimes the problem with that is if people don't like it, you're going, well, God, that's me. That's me. So
Right.
how did you end up, you get it done? What's your course of action to get it up and you performing it?
Well, I've done a couple one-woman shows. This is not my first rodeo. So I knew I was going to put it up in some way. My first step was I did a reading in front of about 20 people whose opinions I respect. I just did where I read the script and they gave me feedback. And then I went back and I sulked for about 6 months because people didn't stand on their feet and go, "You're brilliant. You're a genius." So after I got over the fact that I was not Michelangelo, I started writing. Some people didn't have good points at all. You know who you are. But anyway, so I went back to the drawing board and I started writing and writing. And I have a couple girlfriends who you mentioned, Monica Piper, Kathy Ladman, both of which have done one-woman shows. And recently, and I kept calling them and saying, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. And they're like, yeah, you are. You're going to do it. Monica was like, yeah, you're going to do the show, Debbie. It's great. We had, she was reading it all along. She was one of the people that gives me notes. She goes, it's great. We're putting it up. You've got to do this. You have to do this. You owe this to yourself and to other people. I'm like, okay. Because I've been at, this is, like I said, I've been out of showbiz. And the whole thought of writing is one thing, because you can do that in your pajamas drooling on the bib of your nightgown, and nobody has to know. And but putting it up, like you said, in front of people, and it's so personal. It reveals every horrific thing about myself. It reveals every character flaw. It reveals every guy I slept with. I mean, it is about everything I've been through, about bottoming out as an alcoholic, bottoming out again as a sugar addict. Everything very personal in there, very, very personal. So I kept talking myself out of it. I'm like, why do I want to be this personal? I don't need to show anybody this. And indeed, because it is so personal, I think that's what makes it moving to people, because it is so raw and honest. So yeah, a lot of friends totally encouraged me. A lot of friends that saw my other work, know my work, like, come on, Debbie, it's not gonna, of course it's gonna be good. And I'm like, no, whoa, it's gonna suck. I don't want to do a show that's gonna suck. Why would I want to do a show that's gonna suck? And then I guess I started working with a director. My next step was to find someone who would work with me while we continued to develop it, because once you put it on its feet, then, and you're acting now, and I play about 12 different characters in the piece, and I play myself at all different ages, and I play myself drunk and shit-faced drunk and a little drunk and really drunk and a lot drunk, and I play myself as a stand-up comic when I was drunk. I play myself, so there's a lot of different textures and characters. And now I forget the question because I've talked so long past the point. What was the question?
The question was basically getting it up. What were your legs of getting it running?
So I get a director and we start working on it on its feet. I bring a little piece in and we do it. And as we're doing it, I say, oh, it's too wordy. Let me go. And I go home and rewrite it. And I bring it back and we rehearse it again. And we start honing it while it's on its feet. And that's basically, and then, I just booked it myself in the Santa Monica Playhouse. I had a gig in Florida that I was supposed to do, and it fell through, and I had this show. And I'm like, well, I can't not do it. So I just booked it in the Santa Monica Playhouse and hung up a little shingle, and people came. And that's, Bob's your uncle, as the Brits say. Don't
Now,
ask me
what
what it
was that
means.
opening night like? Did you have all the nerves? What's going on through your mind when I said you've been out of business for a while. Now you're coming back and you're getting very, very, very personal. And I mean, and like anything, I think comics, we use the nervous energy to help us. I still get nervous, but I use it. I don't as much anymore because I mean, when I perform, I don't give a shit attitude. I go up there, I'm like, it's not like when we were performing back in the late '80s, when you're worried about getting all the, because there was so much work, you don't
Yeah,
want
and
to
you
slow
needed
up
more
now like
work,
that.
and you had to kill so
Yeah.
you could get more
So
work.
exactly. So what was it like for you that opening night? I mean, did you have a good support of your friends come out, or were you in front of strangers? And what was your mental mind game when you hit that stage?
Well, I sent out personal invitations to all the important people to me in my life, and I asked them to please come. I charged them. I didn't invite them for free, but I said, please come to opening night. Everybody knows what I've been through. So there's a lot of people rooting for me just because of all that I'd been through. And a lot of people were rooting for me. A lot of people that saw my first one woman show, or my second one woman show, or my musical that you were talking, or my stand up, which I occasionally do. And so people came out with the attitude that they wanted to love me. And I knew that, which maybe 10 years ago I didn't. 20 years ago, I always figured everybody wanted me to bomb. I really thought that, I battle with a lot of,
Why? Why? No. Did you ever?
not my
Do you know
friends,
why
but
you thought that?
well, because I have battled my entire life with a very cynical attitude and with a lot of low self-esteem. So, I always figured that if I died, someone in the audience would get pleasure out of it, which really isn't true. It's awful to watch somebody die, isn't it?
Oh
Isn't it
God,
awful
yeah.
to
It's
watch a comic? I know. I'd
you,
rather watch. I'd
you,
rather watch a real person really die than watch a
yeah.
comic die.
No, you're right. It's so. I remember back at the Comedy Factory outlet when we would have these open mics, and back then there was crowds. It wasn't just like an open mic. Now all comics, CFO and Comedy Works,
Yeah, yeah.
they got busy, and you would see some of these acts every week. Every week they die, and you're thinking, are you just a masochist? Like, don't like what will it take you to stop because you have never gotten a laugh? And there are people like that. And I remember one person said, I go, how's the crowd? They go, well, they didn't talk during my set. I'm like, well, the object is to get people to laugh during your set. But
Nobody
it's one of those
hit me.
things, it's painful though. You're right to see someone, especially when they've honed their craft and they're getting ready, but unfortunately, they're just not funny. And you're right, it is a tough thing.
Right. So at some point, what kicks in for me now that I'm, as they call it, a seasoned performer, French for Debbie Kasper, she's still alive. Now that I've been through so much, not just career wise, so much disappointment, so much glory, so much near misses, but I've been through so much personally. At some point, you can just gather yourself and say, I'm doing this show because I love entertaining people. And that is what I'm here for. I ain't here to solve any math problems. I'm not here to be in politics. I'm not here to be the one that's going to take you, to the doctors when you get cut. I am here to make people laugh. And I'm real clear on that. And I know that the show was funny. I've always known the show was funny. I'm been writing comedy since I was 25 years old. Writing comedy is the easy part of the show. The hard part of the show is getting the drama to work within the comedy and, getting the arc. So at some point when you're at opening night, it's like everybody just wants to love me. I would say half the audience were people that care deeply about me, and the other half were their friends or their dates or other people that just bought tickets. I don't know who they were. So yeah, you just, I did I answer the question?
Yeah, you did. I got another question for you. That's what I do. I ask questions. When did you start comedy? I know you went to Cherry Hill West, right? Because West,
Yep.
did you go to West?
Yeah.
And I went to East. Okay. And I started after I got 2 years after I got out of college, I started. When did you start comedy? And did you start in this area or were you in New York?
No, I was in New York. I started comedy very late. I did not start stand-up comedy till I was 34 years old. And I moved to New York City to be a famous Broadway actress. And I was auditioning and I was getting roles, and I did not like that I couldn't get any exposure. And in the 80s, comedy was exploding. And I was in my cups, as they say in AA. They broke my anonymity. In my cups, I was drinking a lot, and I started hanging out at the comedy clubs. And I just got addicted to comedy. I kept every night I would go to the clubs, and my tabs were literally like $50 a night. This is in 1984. And I got totally obsessed with comedy. And as the story goes, one night I heard a bartender say that comedians drink for free. And I went, and I ran over and I signed up. This is folklore. It's kind of the truth, but this is the way I tell it in my story. I went over and I signed up that night for an open mic, and I started doing it. And, I was always a funny person, but stand-up comedy wasn't even a thing until like the mid 80s. And all of a sudden it was everything, it was everything. And I got on stage pretty quickly, and I did well pretty quickly. And within 2 years of being on stage, I was working, I was on the road. I had a car. So I was on the road, and I immediately started working for Andy Scarpati and all over the country. And, the rest is history.
What was it like in the early days for a female comic? Because out of Philly, we didn't have many. There was not a lot of females, and there was a lot of fucking scumbag comics back then. The guys that would sit there and they'd have they'd take their ring off at the comedy condo by the pool, and they'd have but you'd see their wedding ring, the tan line, but they would think, I remember I said to the guy, I go, dude, aren't you married? Hey, when the cat's away. And I'm like, God, you're a scumbag, but there's a lot of scumbags back then. What was it like for a female comic? Because that was, later is when the all-female shows started. I used to have a show in LA at Flappers called Cooper's Angels. And I would book 7 women. And, Kathy Ladman came and did the show. I think Wendy Lehman stopped in, Marilyn Rice Cup, because they knew it was a fun show. And we had a little poster. It was like Charlie's Angels, and it said Cooper's Angels. But that was, before then, there wasn't these all-female shows. So what was it like from you? Because you were at the heyday, man, of comedy. And then once again, there wasn't a lot of women out there. What was it like for you guys? Were you constantly getting hit on? Were you getting and I see it in the business world, still looked down upon, which pisses me off. I see it all the time. It's really,
oh yeah,
you think things have changed.
They haven't, I hear.
So what was it like? Yeah, what was it like in back in the day?
There was 2 things that 3 things, big things that stand out. The first one is that when a woman got on stage and you were like at the Improv or the Catch a Rising Star in New York, I would watch myself get on stage, and all the male comics would leave. They would just come in and watch the men. They would leave. I would watch them. And that was one thing that went on a lot. The other thing that happened is that they would never put more than 1 woman on a show. If they put more than 1 woman on a show, they would put all 3 and call it an estrogen fest. So there was never more than 1 woman on a show. I got a ton of stories. But yes, I got hit on, absolutely. But no more than I got hit on in regular life. When you're on stage and you're a comic, even if you're working with some scumbag comedian who's hitting on you, I still always have the power to say, no, thank you. Yep, nope, no. And I really very rarely got involved with the comedians. I don't know why. I guess no one interesting hit on me. But one night I was at a club in, I don't remember where it was, but the condo, I was working with a guy, couldn't tell you his name. The condo, they took one bedroom and they hung, like that movie, It Happened One Night, they hung a bedspread between the two beds. And that's why they didn't want to book women, because the two guys would kind of share a room with a sheet between them. But I got put in there with this comic next to me who'd been hitting on me all night. And we go back to the condo and I'm lying. I mean, our beds are this far apart, but there's this fake wall. Don't, stop that. And he's
Wait,
like, I'm right
Deb,
over.
you froze. You froze when you said you froze for a second when you said the beds were this close apart. Then what happened?
And the guy's
You
over there, and
froze your camera.
and the guy's right over there, and we're going to sleep. And I'm scared at this point because the guy's giving me the creeps. He was hitting on me so much. He's not like it was a cool guy. And I'm like, get away. I grew up with 3 brothers. I know how to tell a guy to fuck off without getting hit. And but this guy had been bothering me all night long, and now we're in bed and there's like something between, and he's like, hey Deb, hey babe, I'm over here thinking about you. I'm like, yeah, well, you can just keep thinking, because that's as far as it's gonna go. And he just was making these cooing noises from the bed next door. So yeah, it was gross. But the worst thing that happened is that nobody, they don't want to headline you if you're a woman. So you're like stuck in the middle position for a really long time. And that was hard, pushing, through that barrier. Yeah, tons of barriers for women. And I do hear that it's not, I don't really do stand up anymore, but I do hear it's no better. I hear it's still really bad. Like America.
Yeah, I mean,
not any better with women,
yeah. Now I was looking through your IMDb, and I did not know that you wrote for the Rosie O'Donnell show
and Roseanne.
Yeah. So, how did you get those jobs? Which Rosie? I mean, did you know Rosie from the New York scene, or how did you end up working with Rosie?
I did VH1, so Rosie saw me as a comic. I didn't know her personally. But I worked for her on VH1, and I did a good set, and she was flattering. And my best friend at the time, Jeanette Barber, was very good friends with Rosie. But okay, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. My first job was writing for Roseanne. I moved out to LA. I had a one-woman show that I had written. This is, 25 years ago. And I put my show up out here, and I'm getting good reviews. I won an award. I'm getting buzz. And I suddenly have an agent, a writing agent. Now, while I had been in New York, I had written myself a spec script, which is you take a sitcom that you like and you write a mock script of that sitcom. Because I really wanted my own sitcom. That was my whole dream. But it occurred to me that if that didn't work out, at least I could write for sitcoms. And so I wrote a spec script. I come out, I got my one-woman show, and some agents come to the audience because there aren't very many funny women, as you said. So I'm kind of standing out, and I've got a script. Next thing I know, I've got a pretty high-powered agent, and I have my choice of jobs, and I end up writing for Roseanne. And I was miserable. It was a really, really horrible job. At the end of the year, I had this manager. I got this manager. I mean, everything was happening for me at once. And they were working to get me my own sitcom. And I got a sitcom deal, and the networks were all looking at me to build a sitcom around me. And it was a really scary, fun time, but I was scared to death. There was so much heat on me. And it all went away one day. It just all dissipated for a long, long story that I won't go into. But I was already 40 years old. I think they found out. I didn't look my age because this is before the internet. You could lie. So I was lying about my age. And I think they found out how old I was, and all of the heat went away, and I never ended up getting a deal. So I'm on the phone with Jeanette Barber, my best friend in New York. And she, at this point, is Rosie O'Donnell's head writer. And she's like, well, we can't find any good writers. And I'm like, well, I don't want to write for TV. That was not what I want to do at all. And she goes, well, Rosie wants you. Rosie wants to hire you. So basically, Jeanette just kept telling Rosie, I wish we could get Debbie Kasper. I wish we could just get Debbie Kasper, because Rosie was going through writers and she was not happy with her writers. And I guess Rosie finally said, well, why can't we get Debbie Kasper? I'm Rosie O'Donnell. This is a national show. I don't understand. And she goes, well, she's writing for Roseanne. She's got her own sitcom. We can't get her. Well, all of a sudden I had nothing. And Jeanette called me up like the next day and she goes, this is pathetic, but Rosie and I are about to beg you to come work for us. And I went, okay. So I packed up and I moved back to New York City and I wrote for Rosie. And that was a very good experience.
What did that entail? Like, did you go writing every day? Did you write sketches or did you write jokes or did you write monologue? What did that job entail?
Rosie?
Because Jeanette's great. Jeanette's like, yeah, for Rosie O'Donnell. What was your day like when you would write for her show?
Yes, you went in 5 days a week. You went in very, very early because she taped it, I think, 10 o'clock in the morning. So we had to be there by 6 o'clock, Monday through Friday. And we had to have read the newspaper and had jokes written from the newspaper or current events, at least, not necessarily politics, something going on in the world. We had to have jokes to pitch to Rosie, and we would have a meeting at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And she never did anything topical, so it was almost for her pleasure. We would come in and say, hey, Cher just got another facelift, and whatever. And she was like, really? So it was almost like a gossip session. But then we had to come up with what they call desk pieces. Now, a desk piece is Rosie sitting at the desk and she does her opening monologue, which we all help her write, but she wrote a lot herself. She knew what she wanted to say. Sometimes she'd incorporate something current that you brought to her attention. And then she would say, okay, my next guest is going to be, Barbra Streisand. And then after Barbara leaves, she would say something, and I'm making this up. She'd say something like, I wanted to do my own album when I was growing up. I wanted to be a singer. This is the album I would have come up with. And then there'd be like a mock Rosie O'Donnell singing album. They do it on all the talk shows. They're called desk pieces. Bill Maher does a ton of them. Would you like to see what everybody is really saying about Donald Trump in the men's room? So those are called set pieces. So you have to write and pitch those. And she picks the one she likes. And then the people that pitched it go back and flesh it out and write the whole thing up. And, for example, one that I wrote, she had Alec Baldwin coming on, who I'd been in love with my whole life. He was my movie star boyfriend. And she didn't know what to do with them. He'd been on before. She didn't know and they were from the same hometown, kind of like you and I, except they had careers. Okay. So I pitched that Alec Baldwin teaches you how to do a Shakespearean monologue. And she loved it. And so I said, he's going like, yeah, duh. So where art thou, dems and does, So it's two New Yorkers from Long Island trying to do Shakespeare English. So I pitched that and she liked it and they were going to do it that day. The thing about daily shows is you write it and you do it then, So I went and I wrote the script real fast and you hand it to the head writer and she goes, yeah, this is good. I'm going to just change this. And it goes to Rosie. Rosie says, okay. And so it comes back to me and it's like 9:30 in the morning and the show's taping it at 10. And they're going, okay, you got to take this down to Alec Baldwin. I'm like, I do? And they're like, yeah, he's in his dressing room. Take it down to Alec Baldwin. Do you mind? I'm like, mind? I may never come back. So I'm like running down to Alec Baldwin's room and I knock on the door. And I, of course, I looked horrible. I had no makeup on. I had shitty shows because you don't dress as a writer because you're never seen. You just go to work in your sweats. But anyway, so that's an example of like what the kind of writing you have to do on a daily show. And sometimes you go on location. Sometimes You say, all right, we're going to do a piece about this haunted house out in New Jersey. Debbie, you go out, see what you can see and write something about it. So you go out with a film crew and they interview the woman, and I'm trying to run around, find something funny that Rosie can do about it. Things like that. You got another friend there, Steve?
No, the air conditioner went on. I was like, what is that noise? Because it's been so shitty, the weather lately. It's like we get thunderstorms. Whenever I record my show, I get thunderstorms.
I hear.
So, okay. Question, and I can't think. You used to do another character. Who was the character? You did one person show, and it was it a house or something?
Zelda Bing.
Zelda Bing. Okay, tell me about that character. Where did that character come from? Because I still remember I would see like your post and it said Zelda. It was Zelda Bing. Yeah. So where did that character come from?
She actually wrote a book. I did a 2-woman show with a comedian named Sheila Kay. We did a stand-up gig together, and we looked at each other. We go, I got to get the hell out of Dodge. Let's write a show and go on the road. So we wrote a fake self-help comedy that was originally called Venus Attacks, and then it got the name changed to Self-Help the Comedy. And it was 6 characters. We each played 3 characters that are fake self-help gurus on tour together. So one of the characters was Zelda Bing, who shows women how to make a man love you. And she was this hideous character with an ugly wig, and she was fat and dumpy, and she had an ugly dress on, but she believed that she was the most beautiful thing in the world, because that's really what it's about, believing that you're beautiful. And she was always talking about how men dig me, yeah, men dig me, Zelda. So after that show ran its course, we were on the road for a couple of years, and then we went our separate ways. And I was sitting around saying, what do I want to do? Do I want to go back to stand? We went all over the country doing that show in performing arts centers. And I came back and I'm like, what do I want to do? And I just decided, maybe I should do because Zelda was always a very big hit. I said, let me do a 1-woman show about Zelda. So that was my second 1-woman show I did. It's all comedy. There's no arc. There is a point. The point is, love someone, even if it's just yourself. It's all about love. It's got a good message, but every single moment in the show is a joke, and it's interactive. People come up on stage and I show them how to flirt. And of course it's horrible. And you do affirmations to believe it, how beautiful you are. So that was Zelda Bing. And she is still being asked for. I go to Florida and people are like, when's Zelda Bing coming back? I'm like, Zelda's dead. She's not coming back anymore. I've outgrown Zelda. I don't even have the dress. What?
Oh, man. If someone asked you to do Zelda, you wouldn't bring Zelda back?
It would.
Someone said, hey, Debbie, here's a lot of money.
A lot
Zelda,
of money.
Here's a lot of money. Come.
I'll do anything for a lot of money.
I just want to make sure. I want to make sure. Okay.
Listen, I've got the script. It's just that it's a lot of work, and I'm working and I'm trying to do something a little more meaningful. I might go back and do Zelda because people do still ask for her. I might go back and do her at some point. She's definitely fun, but I wanted to do something more. I have theater roots. I wanted to do something more theatrical.
Okay. Well, I want to get back to your show right now. You had left comedy. I know, was it Pat? Was that your boyfriend? You both had done Cooper Talk, and that's why I ended up going to the show at the Portal. It was an 80s show, I believe.
It was a boomer mania. It went from the 60s to the 80s. It's all about the baby boomers.
And it was a fun show, and the Portal is cool. It's so funny because like North Hollywood's such a shithole, but then the Portal was like a nice, like
the El Portal,
funny,
yeah.
Like some places you go the wrong turn in North Hollywood, you're like, where am I?
It's true.
Okay, so the show, you got out of what tragedies ensued that made you leave the business? Because it's something that I always have the feeling we can't get out of this business. Something always pulls us back, even if we do it as a hobby. Like I was not doing stand-up for a while, and then when I moved back here, I had a business development job, and everyone's like, "What? I heard you do comedy." I performed at some benefit, and people were like, "We didn't know you did comedy." I said, "Well, because when I go to an event, I'm for my friend's company. I don't need the laugh. But then I started working into doing comedy, networking things and stuff like that. But you get pulled back in. So what was everything? What happened? Was it after Pat passed away, or
we put up? Yes, we put up the big show, and it's a hit. And we signed with a producer, and they dropped the ball. And we signed with the second producer, and they dropped the ball. We had raised money from everybody we knew to do this show, so we were in debt to the people we know and love most, like 200 grand. And we weren't in debt to them. They invested in the show. If the show goes, they get a piece. If the show doesn't go, they get nothing, because that's showbiz, folks. So all these producers came. We went with a producer. It didn't work. 4 different producers picked that show up, and all 4 of them just completely either fucked us or dropped the ball, or it wasn't as easy as they thought. They lost interest. So we ended up completely bankrupt, because we were both the co-creators, co-directors, and we had been doing it for a while. So all of a sudden we had no money. So I lose all my money. And then Pat got sick. So I'm already off the road as a stand-up. I'm not doing stand-up anymore because of all the TV writing, and then this show and the other show I was on the road with. I'm very far away from being able to go back on the road as a stand-up. So I don't really have anything. I kind of lose everything. Pat gets diagnosed with not 1, but 2 cancers within a 10-year period. So I basically I had to get off the road anyway to take care of him. So I basically, ushered him out of this life. So that was kind of all encompassing. And then during that time, my best friend died, my brother died. So I lost my career, him, my brother, my best friend, and all my money. I just lost it all, like in a period of about 4 or 5 years. So I just ended up saying, screw this. And I got a job. I started working a job. I kind of had to, because we were penniless. When Pat was still alive, we were penniless. He didn't even have insurance when he was diagnosed with cancer. So I got a job, and I just kind of held on to it for a while because it was lucrative. And I just now retired, and I'm back. I'm back with a vengeance.
What was your job?
I was selling investment grade gold and silver over the phone.
What is that like? I mean, when you come from a background in entertainment, all of a sudden you have to be on the phone. As I said, you've anyone in Hollywood, you have your ups and downs, but you had some, you wrote for Rosie. You've done a lot more than a lot of people have. You wrote for Roseanne. What was so bad about Roseanne's job? Because who was it? I think was it? Man, she was just on a few weeks ago. She wrote for Roseanne and she didn't like it. I'm blanking on her. Anyway, what was bad about Roseanne?
I don't think you can swing a dead cat in this town without finding someone who didn't like writing for Roseanne. I have a friend, Bob Nickman, that I wrote with, and when you bump into him to this day, he says, it's like Vietnam. I'm still not ready to talk about it. She was nuts. We would write the hours were horrific. We would work 90-hour weeks. She would show up on Friday, and we would hand her the script that we'd all been working on all week that she'd been. Sorry, I have a yappy dog, Jackie. Enough. That we'd been like laboring over, 10 very talented writer, been writing all week. And she'd show up, she'd call us on Friday, and this is the old days, there would be like a speaker from the phone in the middle of the conference room. And we'd all be sitting around, and we're doing a table read on Monday and shooting the sitcom the next Friday. And she'd go, I hate it. Start over. And we would be thinking we were going home after working 70 hours. And instead, we had to spend all weekend there again, writing a whole different show. And that happened a couple times. It was bad vibes, just a bad vibe place. They fired the head writer. They hired a guy to run the show that carried a gun. I mean, it was just insane. who was also, by the way,
Hollywood
from
people.
Cherry, who was also from Cherry Hill.
Really?
I'm not going to
You
say
can tell
who,
me off there.
since I just impugned
Okay.
him, but he knows who he is. He knows he had a gun.
So are you excited about this show? You're retired. You're sitting there. You start the show. No, was it extended because you were selling out? I mean, how many shows have you done? How many performances have you done of this?
I only did 4 shows. I set it up that way just because my plan was, these shows take a long time to get good. So I figured I'd put it up. I'd do it 4 times. I'd get more feedback. I'd go back and I'd rewrite, and then I'd put it up again until it was right. But the feedback has been so beyond my wildest dreams, because it's a story about many things, but it's also a story about the love of my life dying, and I tell it in a funny way. So somehow it moves people. People are moved. They laugh. They all come out and say, I laughed, I cried, I laughed, I cried. It's like I didn't know what to do. It's very theatrical. There's a lot that happens. And so the feedback has been so good that I'm like, all right, now I got to do something with this damn thing. I guess it's in pretty good shape. I mean, it still needs tweaking, and I need, as an actress, tweaking. It all needs to always be better. But, yeah, it's sold out almost all the shows. People didn't get to see it. A lot of important people didn't get to see it. So I'm doing 2 more to hopefully get, just to get to the next level. Plus, I need to practice doing it. It's an hour and a half of material. And in order to master every moment, your muscles have to get built, and you can't do it without an audience, and you can't do it, without doing it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like learning to do stand-up.
How do you remember an hour and a half, though? I mean, that always amazes me, because it's just you, and you're doing different characters. I mean, it must be so mentally. I mean, shit, I forget everything. My wife laughs. I forget stuff all the time. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to do that? But then, of course, ask me who my 3rd grade teacher is. I know who that is.
Exactly.
But how do you remember, though? How did you? I mean, because does that take a while? And are you ever nervous that you might lose your spot on stage, even though you're a comic, so you can get back into it? But I can imagine, because we all have that dream, like, oh my God, I'm gonna forget. So how do you remember it all?
Well, first of all, that has happened to me several times in previous shows when I was much younger. And I was scared to death of that, because I'm seasoned and my memory's gotten really bad. As you mentioned, your memory, it's not even that your memory's bad, it's that your brain's full. My brain's much more full than it was when I was younger. There's so much in there, so many memories of everything and everybody, and phone numbers from 6th grade, and the list goes on. You just keep repeating it. You just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. There's no way around it except repetition. You can learn anything with repetition.
Now, is the show, when you do it, is it cathartic for you? Are you gaining something out of it, or is it draining? How do you feel when you get off the stage? Because it is personal, and people laugh, they cry. What is your feeling when you walk off stage? Are you, relieved you got through it? Are you happy? Are you sad? Does it stir emotions? I mean, it really must hit
all of that. All of that. Great question. All of that. Yes, I'm happy it's over. I'm happy I got through a show without totally fucking up or going up on lines, as you said. I'm happy that the audience seemed to have, been with me or were with me. I'm excited to go out into the lobby and say hi to everybody, because people always wait for me there to say hi. I'm moved personally, because it is such a personal story, and so sad. The 2 women that have helped me with the show, who are my directors, they both knew Pat very well. One of them introduced me to him, and they both have known me a long time. And every time we get to the part about Pat getting diagnosed with Pat, all 3 of us cry every rehearsal. and they still sit in the audience and cry when I do that part. So yeah, it's cathartic in that way. It's cathartic artistically. It's like, oh, I did it. And yes, yes, I got a standing ovation. Yay. Yes, they're laughing at everything. Yay, I did it. It's getting there. We're getting there. And yes, it's an emotionally cathartic. And it's, it's all of those things,
Now, will you eventually, if you have the opportunity, take this on the road? If you could put this together and jump from cities to cities, would you?
The plan is to take this to
So that's your plan?
Yeah. Well, I don't know
how do you go about it?
I don't know.
Yeah, how would you go about that?
I don't know. I thought maybe if I did your podcast, a producer would be watching. No?
Look at Andy Scarpati. You can do it at Poco's at the Bucks County.
Well, there's a lot of ways it could happen. One is I can raise the money myself. I have some people come to the show that have some big bucks, some gold friends. And if they love the show, I'm like, give me $100,000 so I can raise the money myself and produce it myself. I don't want to do that. Or somebody from New York can see me and just bring me there and produce it. I got to keep running so the buzz keeps going and people see it. You got to let the word of mouth go, and eventually
it'll happen. One final question. I always end my show with this. You've had a good career. You've had ups and downs, as you said. But looking back, and it can be personal, it can be professional. What are a few things that make you proud when you look back at your career and your life? What are some things that you personally are proud of?
I'm proud of the fact that I've never mixed my art with money. I've always just been as true to my art as I can. And if the money came, great. And it usually does if you're really true to your art. I almost never sold out, except writing for Roseanne. That was a bit of a sellout. But then again, not really, because I was working towards getting my own sitcom. I'm really proud of the fact that I was able to help Pat die in a way that he knew he was safe and loved. And I'd never done anything like that before. I don't have kids. I've never been a nurturing person. And I'm proud that I did that because that was really, really hard and really, really long. I'm proud of the show I'm doing because it's really hard. And I'm just really proud that I didn't bail and say, I'm not going to do it, which is what I wanted to do. And I'm proud
That's awesome, Deb.
Yeah. And I'm proud that I've
go ahead.
Not really burnt bridges. I don't have a lot of great showbiz contacts. I knew everybody in the day. I never stayed in touch with any of them, but I also never pissed anybody off or hurt anybody or lied or cheated or stole. I'm proud of my sobriety. I'm proud of 30 years of sobriety. That's the whole ticket right there, because none of the rest of it would have happened without that.
Well, this has been awesome, Deb. I'm glad we got to catch up. People, remember, July 31st and August 10th at the Santa Monica Playhouse. There's monkeys on my back and everywhere else. So please go check her out. Check out the show if you're in LA. Don't forget to check out my shows. You can go to Spotify. You can go to YouTube. You can find all my past episodes of Coop's Comedy Corner. We've had some great guests on. Emmy-winning writers. Sue Kalinsky is the one who wrote for the other one who wrote for Roseanne. It was Sue Kalinsky.
No, she didn't write for Roseanne. Kathy Labman wrote for Roseanne. No, Sue Kalinsky did not write for Roseanne. She wrote for Ellen. Sue's a good friend of mine.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah,
Ellen.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
there's lots of divas out there that we don't like.
Yeah. So people, you can go check that out. Go to Coop's Comedy Corner. Also on YouTube, go look up the Coop Tank. That's my weekly business roundtable. I I interview three local business people about motivation, success, and things like that. And don't forget CooperTalk.net. I have over 1,044 episodes. My buddy from Cold Case, Jeremy Ratchford, just came back on. That'll be being posted soon. Go check out Jimmy Corhan, Comedy Trainwreck. Jimmy does a great service to a lot of Philadelphia comics, myself, Coleman Green, John Kensel on the Wid, Chica Loca. He has a bunch of shows. He helps people out, and it's great. And also, don't forget CoopsComedyCorner.com. Get some of that swag. So I'm Steve Cooper. That's Debbie Kasper. You all have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Coop's Comedy Corner.